What's up, everyone? Welcome to the show. My name's John Moore, and I'm going to be your instructor today. In today's video, I want to show you guys how to tune your banjo. It's a relatively simple little process. In my last video, I showed you guys the anatomy of the banjo. I showed you the numbering of the strings and went over the peg heads and the frets and all of this, all the parts of the banjo. And if you haven't seen that, I would encourage you to go check that out as well. But today, I'm going to show you guys how to tune this thing so you can start playing, okay? So first off, let's go ahead and discuss what the tuning is. This tuning is called G standard tuning, and you just heard it. That introductory song I played for you is played out of G standard tuning, as are 99% of all other banjo songs. There are a few songs played in other tunings like D and C, but this is tuned in G standard tuning, G open tuning. And the banjo is sort of unique in this way in that it's one of the few instruments that is in an open key like this. The guitar or the mandolin or the fiddle or violin, those are tuned not in an open key. They have a standard tuning, but they're not tuned so they can be played open like the banjo is. So open, the banjo is in the key of G. So we call this G tuning. All right, now that's not to be mistaken with what key you're playing out of. So let's say if I capo this up, and we'll talk about chords a little bit later, but say a G, the next one up is an A and then a B. Even though I'm in G tuning, we're playing out, say, an A chord or a B chord. But we'll talk about that in just a minute. That's something we can discuss later. For now, all you need to worry about is that this is G, okay? And this is G tuning. So our strings are numbered from bottom to top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So bottom to top, not in order of pitch, but just bottom to top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've got 5 strings, okay? And for each of those strings, you've got a peg on your instrument. Now, in this case, you'll see mine are straight back right here. These are pegs, okay? And these are on the back of your instrument. Yours may be facing outward on the sides, depending on what type of peg that you have. They may face straight back or they may face outward to the side, but you'll have 5 pegs, one for each string. Now, these pegs and these keys, that's the plastic parts here. These are pegs, and the actual geared portion, these are your keys. Now, as you turn these pegs, the tuning of the corresponding string that's wound around it will change. So if we take the third string, that's 1, 2, 3, third up from the bottom, and we twist that, it'll change pitch. So we can tune our instrument in that way. Now, how we're going to tune this is we go once again from the bottom to the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's D, B, G, D, G. Now, when it comes time to select your tuner, you've got a few different options. Some of them use a microphone. Others use clips. Others clip onto your banjo. Some of them plug in if you have a pickup on your banjo. Some banjos come with pickups. Some of them you can plug right into a pickup. But in this case, the one I'm going to show you here, this one uses a microphone. Now, if you get a tuner that uses a microphone, the issue with these is if you're playing in a room with anyone else, say you're at a jam or you're in a band and other people are trying to tune or play, or maybe they're just one of the big habits that people who play music have is between songs they're just running through little riffs and things like that. It makes it impossible to tune your instrument because this will pick that up as well, and the tuner doesn't know what pitch to be telling you. So you might want to look at something that clips on your instrument instead, and those are actually noise isolating. So what they do, or they're sound isolating, so what they do is they read the vibrations of the instrument rather than the actual sound. They don't have a microphone. They just read the vibrations and detect those, and it gives you the pitch of the string, and you can tune your instrument that way. Now, every tuner is a little bit different. You'll have to read the instruction manuals on them, but suffice to say, most of them, they have a little needle or a little arrow or something around the letter or around some center point, and you want to get that needle or those arrows in that center point. And a lot of times when it's in the center point, you'll have some sort of green indicator. So it might have a red indicator for when you're high or low, whenever you're flat or sharp. And then you'll have a center indicator, which is green, and it'll let you know when you're in tune. Okay, but you'll have to read your instruction manual to do that. But once again, you know, as long as we're tuning to D, B, G, D, G, you should be fine. Now, you may have noticed that there are 2 Ds and 2 Gs in this tuning, but none of them really sound the same. Well, the reason for that is because the two Ds and the two Gs are on different octaves from each other. So we have a low D on our fourth string and a high D on our first. And likewise, we have a low G on our third and a high G on our fifth. And how this works musically is we have a scale that goes from A to G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And after G, it starts over at A again. So starting from our G position on our third string, we go G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And we're back at G, and you'll hear. And that's just sort of, this is just sort of a higher version of the lower version. And once we get back to G, it just starts over again, so. And we can go on up. Okay, so the scale starts over there at the 12th fret. That's one octave on the banjo. So when we play a song open, because we're in G tuning, we're in the key of G. But if a song is in the key of A, then all we need to do, knowing that we're in G tuning, is instead of tuning the banjo up, we just simply use a capo. Now, a capo is a little device that clamps across your strings. These don't come with your banjo usually. You'll have to buy this separate, but it clamps across your strings. Some of them will screw like a clamp. Others will have a little spring on them and you pinch them. Those are fairly common. They're like guitar capos. There are really a bunch of different designs of capos, more than I could really name, but they all do the same thing. They simply clamp down on the strings and raise the pitch of the banjo. So now I'm up 2 frets, which is one note on the banjo. So I went from a G to an A. So now the banjo is a higher pitch. And we can take it up to a B. And you'll notice I'm sliding my finger here along my 5th string. I have what's called banjo spikes installed in this. And I'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. But taking it up to B. And you can hear how that sounds much different from this down here. So that takes us up from G all the way up on the 4th fret to B. Now in between our G and A is G sharp. So we got G, G sharp, A. Now on the 3rd fret, we've got A sharp, 4th fret B, and then our 5th fret C. And that's out of our open G tuning. Now, getting on to what I was talking about up here with the 5th string. Now, when you tune your banjo up, the 5th string isn't affected by the capo. So when I place the capo on this instrument, you'll notice I'm a little bit out of tune. Alright, now you'll notice this 5th string doesn't quite go with the rest, does it? Well, the reason for that is because the 5th string needs to be capoed up 2 frets as well. So those little railroad spikes that I put in this case, work as a capo. I can hook them under it and it holds the string down and presses it and frets it. Like that. What we can do instead is we can tune the 5th string up. If you don't have railroad spikes or the banjo spikes. And I sometimes call them railroad spikes because they're shaped like little railroad spikes. They're little tiny nails and they're bent over like this and the string just slides right underneath them and it holds them down. And you can tune it up and get the same effect without the spikes. The spikes are just faster. Now, when you go up to a higher key like B, I don't like playing the banjo up in B without spikes on the banjo. So you might want to stay in G and A for now. And the reason for that is you run the risk of breaking a string tuning this 5th string all the way up to B. And I'm not real comfortable doing that. I've never broke one yet doing that, but I don't do it. I use my railroad spikes because you're putting a lot of pressure on those strings. As far as the railroad spikes go, the banjo spikes, if you don't have them on your banjo, you can get them installed. Now, where you can get them installed at is at a music shop. Anywhere that has a luthier or someone that works on the instruments, where they'll do things like change your strings and dress your frets, they can also install a banjo spike. Now, if you're dealing with a relatively inexpensive banjo, then you can do that. If you're dealing with an expensive banjo or a finer instrument, then it might be worth going to a proper luthier to have them installed. But what they'll do is they simply drill a little tiny pilot hole in your neck, and they drive them in. Okay, and some people will put them on all 5. This one in particular has it on the 7th fret, the 9th fret, and the 10th fret, and I have to tune to sort of go for the flats and the sharps in between these. But it gets me close, and it keeps me from having to tighten my strings up really tight. You'll also see other types of capos that are like a little bar that runs along the side of the neck, and they've got a little spring that comes down and presses against the string, and you just slide it back and forth. Now, I don't like those because they prevent you from vamping. That's an advanced technique on the banjo where we bring our thumb over the neck and we fret the 5th string. So I don't like those. I would rather have the little spikes instead. And that sounds a little something like this. So we're fretting. And we use that whenever we're playing higher licks. Alright, so we use that in a few songs. And backup. Of course, the spikes, they have their downsides. You can feel them underneath your fingers whenever you're fretting the 5th string if you're doing it from up top and we're catching a 7th chord. Okay, so if we're fretting the 5th string from up top, we can feel it. But I prefer these much, much over the little slide capo that goes on the side of the neck here. Anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful. I hope it had some useful information for you. If it was, please be sure to leave it a like down below and subscribe if you'd like to see more lessons like this from me. I'll see you in the next one. Later.